Like many people in this room, I work a lot. Sometimes it feels like every waking moment I'm working in some form or fashion, or even non-waking moment for that matter. I wake up in the middle of the night with some idea, and it seems like I can't turn my brain off sometimes. Some people call this being a workaholic. I like the word driven. But what drives me? I think it's so easy to get caught up in our work that we forget what it's all for. But this is a big mistake. Purpose gives meaning to our lives. And so it stands to reason that if we forget our purpose, then our lives will lose some of their meaning. Beat Generation novelist Jack Kerouac calls this getting stuck in the cycle of work, produce, consume, work, produce, consume. It's an ultimately unfulfilling cycle, but how do we avoid it? Let's start with the basics. What do we need to survive in this world? We need food, shelter, clothing, and fuel. But why do we need these things? Henry David Thoreau says that we need, quote, "The grand necessity then for our bodies is to keep warm, to preserve the vital heat in us." So he takes the food, shelter, clothing, and says, why do we actually need these things? Well, really we just need to keep the bodily warmth. So we'll take that as our grand necessity. Fundamentally, those are all the things we need to survive. But no one wants to just survive. We want the good life, right? We want more than just survival. So let's assume we've gone to work and we've acquired these basic necessities. We've got clothing on our backs, we've got a roof over our head. Now what? Let's hear what Henry has to say on this. It says, when a man is warmed by the several modes which I have described, what does he want next? Surely not more warmth of the same kind, as more and richer food, larger and more splendid houses, finer and more abundant clothing, more numerous, incessant and hotter fires, and the like. When he has obtained those things which are necessary to life, there is another alternative than to obtain the superfluities, and that is to adventure on life now, his vacation from humble toil having commenced. I love this passage. Sort of like, wait a second, you're telling me that money can actually add purpose and meaning to our lives instead of, we can actually use it to do something meaningful rather than buy more of things that we don't need. So this is very compelling to me. An adventure? Okay, cool. I'm listening. Tell me more. So in short, the purpose of work for Henry is twofold. It is to pay for the necessities of life, such as food, shelter, clothing. And secondly, and much more importantly, it is to pay for that freedom to adventure. So adopting this framework as our own, the next logical question is, what's the best way to go about this? I want to get out of this mode of work, produce, consume, work, produce, consume, and get on with that adventuring part. That sounds awesome. If we were to ask Henry, he might say, go build a cabin on your friend's land and plant some beans. But that might be very interesting to his select group of people. But for the sake of having a more broadly applicable direction here, we're going to appeal to his friend, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who is arguably a little more broadly applicable in his thinking. So Ralph writes, the secret of success lies never in the amount of money, but in the relation of income to outgo. As if, after expense has been fixed at a certain point, then new and steady rills of income, though never so small, being added, wealth begins. Okay. Here Ralph is saying in this typical eloquent fashion to do what every personal finance guru touts, which is live below your means. We've all heard this before. Or as I like to think, that mind the gap. That is, mind the gap between your income and your expenses. If done properly, your expenses, back to Henry's framework, will be your necessities, and your And the gap between income and expenses, that becomes your adventuring money or your freedom money. Okay, so we're starting to piece together a framework here using these two figures. Kind of fun. Sounds simple enough, right? But why doesn't everyone do this? Ralph has a good answer for that. But in ordinary, as means increase, spending increases faster, so that large incomes in England and elsewhere are found not to help matters. When the cholera is in the potato, what's the use in planting larger crops? In other words, if you spend more than you earn, it doesn't matter how much you earn. You always spend more. This phenomenon is known as lifestyle inflation, or in business, overhead creep. You're making lots of money, money's coming in the door, and it's all going right back out the door, and sometimes and then some. There's a million tips and tricks about how to save money. I'm not going to go into that. I'm more interested in guiding principles. Again, Ralph to the rescue. He writes, pride is handsome, economical. Pride seems as if pride eradicates so many vices, letting none subsist but itself, that it seems as if it were a great gain to exchange vanity for pride. Pride can go without domestics, without fine clothes, can live in a house with 2 rooms, can eat potato, purslane, beans, light corn, can sit silent, well-contented in fine saloons. But vanity costs money. Labor, horses, men, women, health, and peace. And it's still nothing at last. A long way, leading nowhere. What's he saying here? Exchange your vanity for pride, you'll spend less money. To quickly recap, I work firstly for Henry's brand necessity, to keep the vital heat in. And secondly, to obtain the freedom to adventure, not to obtain more necessities than are needed. To succeed in this, I keep in mind the key financial principle of minding the gap. I do everything in my power to fix my expenses at a certain point, and let all increases in my income accrue to my freedom money or adventure money. And to support in these efforts, I try to evaluate each purchase I make based upon which need of mine it is fulfilling. Vanity is not a valid reason for a purchase. Freedom is worth so much more.